All right. KK, so happy to be here with you and to talk about interdependence.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you could come on, Mabel. Casey and I have been looking forward to this interview.
Yes,
Absolutely.
myself too. I'm looking forward to learn something from you. I'm curious for what that will be. I was very curious about interdependence, right? One of the 5 spectrums that you've kind of mapped out as the mindset for the next level leader.
Yeah.
Correct? All right. So I was curious for you, how do you experience in your life interdependence?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. It has been quite a journey, that's for sure. So I was the sort of quintessential isolationist and independence from very, very young age. Sort of like, I do myself. I put my own coat on, do it all by myself. It was all about that. And to the point where I didn't even know how to ask for assistance. I just didn't know how to reach out, and I would miss opportunities to work with other people because I didn't know. Or I'd end up in groups with people and it was really weird. It just was, I wasn't geared for it. And once I started to get to the place where I started to trust myself more and hang out with people like Casey, who also has training in this, and she trusts herself, that we were able to, as we came together, find this beautiful place where we work together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what ends up happening is that there's this beautiful dance that starts happening, and then we both end up energized from the experience, instead of like when you slip into codependence where you're both sort of taking from each other.
Yes.
Right. And often when we're so independent, we think that that's what's going to be like. It's going to be clingy, or I'm going to have to share stuff. Now, now we have to play. And once I get a taste of it, I decided that I was never going to do anything by myself ever again.
Mm-hmm.
There was just, what was the point? Right? The magic is in what we bring together.
Yeah. Absolutely. How beautiful. When I saw your hands move like that, I felt like that dance, that balance also, right? In that experience of like, yeah, I'm a me, but I'm also part of a we, and that then brings so much energy, creativity. I see some joy on your face.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Yeah. So what I'm interested in is Casey, how did you experience my journey of interdependence?
Kind of how you're talking about, because you were on your journey when I met you. So you had started to work with others. And, I was it was that awkward stage at the beginning where, you were still trying to figure out what that would look like. And, it would slide into some codependence, mostly because I think you just didn't know the how of it yet. And as you have, as you said, started to really trust yourself, your own intuition, your own sense of sort of who you are, what you bring to the table, and all of that, the ease at which interdependence can be co-created is well, now it's like super fast.
Now it's instant. Yeah.
But it's taken us some time over years to understand, as we both have grown and weave that together and practice and do little pieces, and now kind of everything's interdependent.
Everything.
Yeah.
Would it be interesting to think back of a moment where in your relationship you noticed a behavior that was more codependent that you can now see evolved into like a healthy interdependent?
The thing that immediately comes to mind is if I needed something, like I needed some emotional support, or if I needed something, I would just wait till it got loud enough for Casey to notice and offer, because I didn't feel like I could ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'd be like, if you had come to me 4 days ago, then it wouldn't be such a shit show. And now it's like, within sometimes minutes, certainly hours. It's never days and days.
Well, now it's like something feels off and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like you lay it on the table right away, and sometimes, oh, right, jalapenos, never mind, it's all good, right? Or no, there's something else, and you can sort of work through it, or at least if she's aware of it, I can just sort of let it go, and then it might pop up later, or we just sort of notice. But at least we're aware that it's in the soup.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful, beautiful that you have that trust with your own intuition, right? To honor and respect the signals you get internally, but also the trust between you. That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. What do you find working with leaders or with other people in general is like their biggest hurdle with growing this skill or this way of being in life that's interdependent?
Well, it's interesting that I think sort of the challenge that Karen had is one of them, and my approach to interdependence was a little bit different, and it's also something that I see. So I think it depends on kind of where you start. I was the out in front, organize everybody, make it all happen. You know, that was always my place, and I also was running this. You know, I don't want to look foolish. I have to have it all together. You know, all of that. So I wouldn't ask and create space for that because I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing, because I was the leader. I was the one out there. And so for me, it was being willing to be vulnerable that allowed me to actually create the weave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it depends on sort of where you're coming from, whether it's the sort of that fear of being vulnerable, or this, you know, not wanting to, you know, I don't know, maybe it's the same thing.
Well, I think you're right. I think they're two different ones. In fact, I think there's a third one too. And the third one is where they think they're going to lose something in the working with somebody else, right?
That scarcity mentality.
Yeah, like I can't own it and be proud of it unless I did it all by myself.
Yes.
Right? And if I work with somebody else, they're going to hang off of me, or I'm going to, like, they just think it's going to be a codependent. They don't understand the difference between codependence and interdependence. Right? There's two different things. And I think that when people haven't experienced it, they'll back off from it. Like they're worried about what it's going to be like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let me think of what's the next question I want to ask.
Well, let me dive. I'll let you think for a second, because I want to just pop in something here, because I think it's important to be aware of, and it's something that on Karen's and my journey, and on, you know, many of our community's journey, you can't get from sort of dependence to interdependence. You have to go through independence. You actually have to become fully independent yourself and be, you know, able to stand, you know, really in your own self in order to come together as independence or interdependence. Otherwise, what you end up with is codependence. And so the more, you know, aligned you are with your own self, the more you have your own personal mastery. You know, this is where all the 5 spectrums really link together. The more you have of that, the easier it is to move into interdependence as opposed to codependence.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the more independent you are, the less independent you need to be.
Yes. Karen's the universal translator, so I go blah 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 blah, and she goes, yeah, that.
It's like years of great communication in the making.
You bet.
Here. Yeah, yeah, indeed. So first, going from codependence to interdependence, you have to move through becoming independent.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that includes the whole spectrum, right? Is a bit of what I hear you both saying.
Absolutely.
Well, it certainly makes it faster.
Yes.
Yes. What's, and maybe this is a question I'm interested in both of your answers. What's been most helpful in both of your journeys to make that first step, or the biggest step, from codependence to being your own independent self? What's been most helpful for you in that journey?
For me, it was a journey of having been so codependent that it was so harmful and hurtful to me and to the other person I was doing that with, that I drew a line in the sand and said, that's not ever happening again. Like, sometimes pain just needs to get to the point where you realize that you would rather do anything else other than have that ever again.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're in a type of relationship like that and you don't realize that's what it is, right? Because in codependence, you're basically fighting over the same energy. You're not creating anything new. Right. So drama gets created and suddenly one person's getting more energy. So the other person has to create it. It goes back and forth and nothing new ever happens out of it. And when people really aren't aware, which is where we were, and both sensitive people, but not really aware it was happening, you start pulling out of the relationship just to try to get your own needs met. So there was a point where I remember saying out loud, and I said it out loud 2 weeks before I met my husband, Jeff, that I would rather be single for the rest of my life than ever be in that situation again. And I meant it, right? Like, I would rather be with me, just me, than ever be in a place where I was being pulled to not be me, where I had to turn myself into knots in order to try to find an equilibrium with someone else. And it was only after that I started to learn even what codependence was. Like, I didn't know what it was. I just knew there was pain in my world. And so learning about it helped me pull the pieces apart. And so as my husband Jeff and I came together in our relationship, and I was learning about that, we put boundaries in place, not around ourselves, but so that we both had space inside the relationship. Right? Like, even when we got engaged, I said, this means we're engaged, doesn't mean we're married. If we're standing in front of the minister a year from now after all this planning and you need to say no, then you bloody well say no, because I will. Right? Like, that understanding of saying those things out loud.
Yeah.
Right? And not just having these unsaid expectations going on. So there's a lot more conversation that's happening that allowed Jeff and I to grow, both of us, as more and more independent people. And as the more independent we became, the closer we became in our relationship.
Yeah. How beautiful.
For me, it's really was a move from independence, only independence, to interdependence. And I spent many years running my own business, and basically leading in every place. Like, if there was a group, I was leading it, because it meant that I got to be in charge. It meant that I was able to direct what was happening. And that meant that I wouldn't have to put myself at risk, which is so funny for people who don't want to lead. Like, they're like, what? That's totally not. But for me, and the way that I'm wired, that was my protection, the way that I made sure that I was okay. And it was the releasing of that, the sort of reins of, and really even understanding that leading from the middle or from the back is actually even a possibility. And so as I started to learn that, I started to realize that, well, if I actually let go of the control and help someone else lead, then not only is it less work for me, but then I can help someone else learn this. And because it's just one of those innate skills for me. But what I found is I'm actually way better at leading from the middle. And so being able to help someone else lead has been really interesting. And then, so that started to sort of like pull the threads of, what would this be like to actually co-create something? And so I started doing some projects with people and played with it a little, like super low risk. And over time, I have done more and more of that. And then, Karen and I have done quite a bit of work together on many different projects before we started this company. And when we came into this company, everything is interdependent. It's like the whole thing is co-created with the triad, with the three of us, and the people that we have in our community. And so that sort of shift of mentality to, you know, win, win, win. How do we create something that's more than what any of us could do? Because I really restricted where I could take my business, because I was the only one in the business.
Yeah.
And so the allowing that release of my own independence. So I'm, you know, and bringing my flexible, independent self to a new relationship instead of being so rigid.
Mm-hmm.
We all put the toys in the center of the room. We can create things that we can't with just our own, you know, especially because I was the tinker toy person. So Casey was Legos, right? So I mean, we don't necessarily play together, but we put them all in, we can do cool things.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and you can become more than just the sum of the parts.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
We have what Jackie dubbed our piece of cake policy.
Mm-hmm.
And this really goes to the interdependence conversation, because if for me to do my piece of cake and for Karen and Jackie to do their piece of cake, we can only do that if we're working interdependently. Otherwise, things fall through the cracks, right? If for me, otherwise, when I'm on my own in my own business, I have to do everything.
You have to do all the hats.
Yeah. And so when we come together, whether we're doing it as a formal company like we have, or whether you're in community together, that coming together allows for the space for this interdependent meld to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. In a way, do you mean, Casey, in a way that it also allows for people to just focus in their area, let's say their area of genius, right?
Yes.
Or their area where they most like to play or hang out.
Yes.
And then just focus on that. And if that's the same for everyone, then together,
well, this is it.
Round
I think
that
I think the way that we've been taught how to do, especially entrepreneurship in I don't know how it works in the Eastern cultures, but in the Western cultures, the way we've been taught how to do entrepreneurship is especially sort of soulpreneur. It by definition is very hard to be successful.
I was going to say soul sucking.
It is. It's soul sucking. It's heartbreaking, because you actually can't possibly be good at all the hats.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, how do you create this network? How do you build your top 5, right? Your 5 people that you know you can go to. How do you create community that's actually going to support you and be able to pull on the people and the information and the knowledge and all of that you need, instead of like when you're all on your own in your own little world and you're not willing to ask, then you actually can't be successful, and it's heartbreaking and soul sucking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I just got a sense as I heard you talking that I want to talk about celebration. I feel this must be a part of the pie, at least, when we talk about interdependence, right? And
Absolutely.
Working together and forming a we. Tell me a bit about how you, in your triad or in your community, how do you celebrate, or how is celebration for you part of the interdependence?
I think one of the first things that happens as people start playing with interdependence is they're surprised at how much they are being celebrated, because they're showing up entirely as themselves, and someone else is going, wow, that's cool. Because too often, even when we're alone, if we're in our brilliance, there's no one there to notice.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no one there to cheer you. That was awesome.
Right. So if you're in this sort of mutual appreciation society thing going on, right, there's a lot of celebration over things.
You're awesome, and you're awesome, and you're awesome.
We're all awesome. So there is a lot of that. And we also find that every time there's another person, like Casey and I, our first big project, we dabbled on some stuff early and started putting some models and cool things together. But when we started writing our book 2 years ago, what we found is sort of like the joy was, squared. And then last year, when we brought Jackie in to start this business, it got cubed, right? Like there's just so much more fun, so much more joy. And so the celebrations come easy. And for a long time, it was hard for me to celebrate myself because it was always aware that I could have done more. There's always one more thing to do. You don't take the time to breathe and just say, hey, I did that thing.
Yeah.
And now these guys are if I keep working, Casey's like, time out, Karen, you realize we just did X, right? Or, oh yeah.
Well, and this is it, we celebrate ourselves or each other. We have fun, we're silly. We have a Voxer channel, and like this morning, Karen got some good news, put a note in Voxer, and there's like woohooing, and it's this constant awareness, and we'll put in weird. So I was in the shower and I was thinking about this, and then it's in real time, and you're getting feedback. And even this interview series, a lot of the reason why we're doing it is to celebrate the amazing people that we have in our community. We want to be able to connect. We want to be able to lift people up. There's that great meme that's it's a cartoon, and it's one woman, and she reaches down and pulls the woman up, and then that woman pushes the other one up, and it just keeps going. I'm like, that's what we're creating, is this uplifting of our whole community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
And it's fun.
Yeah. I think parts of what I'm hearing you say that I so appreciate indeed is that I think when we're with other people, we so get mirrored back, right? We get in a way a lot of ourselves really mirrored back at us, and sometimes that can be triggering things, but also we get mirrored back a lot of the things that we can feel joyous or proud about, or sometimes, like you said, we get mirrored back the moment we need to let go and stop working, and that's a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Well, I experienced that with you, Mabel, when we met, right? We've met and had like one conversation, and it was like we were like joined at birth or something. It's like, well, I like joy, and I like to do that, and I like to. And the more we talked, the more. And the third person in the Zoom room was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" It was like light everywhere, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. It's
exactly
beautiful when you feel you so resonate. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we get to play with that all the time. And the cool thing is there's so many people that want to be a part of that, right? They want to come and work with people that these are our ideals. If we don't just talk about it and teach it, we live it. So, and we know that we're on the journey. So people can come in and we say, from my perspective, right now, here's what I can tell you. Ask me next week, and it might be something a little more evolved. Who knows, right? But and so people who come and work with us are also on this journey.
Yeah, beautiful, and I'm very grateful to be, at least for this moment, be part of that community. Can I say that for myself?
Of course.
Can I count myself in?
Absolutely.
I'm really grateful to have met you and to be part of these interview series and your launch.
Thanks so much, Mabel. This was so fun.
Cool what you're all building together.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great.
Do we have time for one more question, or would you want to stop it?
Go for it.
Yeah, we're good.
I had I wanted to ask one more question. If you could only give one piece of advice on interdependence, on how to do interdependence, only one, what would you like to say to people?
Only one.
To people or to yourself? It could be something for yourself, or it could be something for other people.
That's good. Do you have your answer, Karen?
I do.
I figured you did. You go, I'll think.
Yeah, jump in naked.
Jump in naked. Yes.
That's so good. I was going to say be vulnerable, but I'm like, that sounds like might be feel scary, but jump in naked's perfect.
Jump in naked. Just
Yeah,
do it.
like be willing to be seen, be willing to ask, like just go in with that playful child mentality of what can we create together?
Because you can't just dip a toe into interdependence. You're either all in or you're not. So just go.
Yeah.
Right.
Jump in
Once you're
naked.
in there, it's going to be, this is awesome. Right.
Exactly. Beautiful. That's great advice. Yeah.
It's a great question.
Go all in and go naked. I'm like, yeah, arms wide open, just boom, deep dive. Yes. Thank you. Wonderful advice. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Oh, this is awesome.
This is great. Thanks so much, Mabel.
Thank you.